What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, man. This is a video nobody wanted, nobody asked for, and I don't even think anybody's going to watch it, but I kind of wanted to do this for myself. So I've seen all these tier lists. iDubbbz did it, H3 did it, and I figured I would do that same exact thing, but for iPhones, the one thing that I know best, and the one thing that I feel like all my followers can relate to. So I figured I might as well rank the best iPhone to the worst iPhone. Now this can be kind of controversial in a way. I know a lot of people have strong opinions on these things, and I'm not going to rank them based on, oh, this is the fastest iPhone, this is the what. I'm going to look at basically what it brought to the table, the impact that it had, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not going to be like, oh, the iPhone XS Max is the best iPhone. Just because it's the newest and the most expensive doesn't mean it's the best at the time or whatever. So, or it had the biggest impact or whatever. So this is basically my list. I created it. If you want to do your own, go ahead. I'll go ahead and leave the first link down in the description to this link so you can go ahead and make your own tier list. And if you're a smaller YouTuber or even a bigger YouTuber or whatever, I encourage you to go make your own list, send them to me, tweet me at them, or make your own videos and send them to me and make your own tier list and let me know which one you like the most and which one you thought was the best and which one you thought was the worst. So that's kind of an introduction. Please, I want to see you guys use this. I spent so much time making these thumbnails and putting the frigging letters on the frigging images. It took so long to do that. And I kind of messed it up towards the end. They didn't really upload properly, but we're going to go ahead and jump into it, man. I'm done talking. You guys are probably bored of me talking. So the first iPhone is the iPhone 2G. Now, I honestly think this is, I don't know if this was the best iPhone or whatever, but I'm just going to say it is the best because it was the first iPhone, whatever. I've said before that it wasn't, but you guys got mad. So just to play devil's advocate, it was the first iPhone. This is the iPhone that brought it all together. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, okay, the iPhone 2G is S tier. It was one of the greatest iPhones, whatever, okay? Now the next one, this is where we can start throwing some opinions around. The iPhone 3G, in my opinion, I would say I would probably classify it as a B tier. I feel like it was a pretty noticeable upgrade from the iPhone 2G, but it was also lacking in terms of just the speed functionality of it, what it kind of brought to the table. It did bring that glossy new design. It changed a few things up here and there, but I still think the difference from a 2G to 3G wasn't as crazy as was the iPhone 3G to the iPhone 3GS. Now, in my opinion, the iPhone 3GS is a much better phone than the iPhone 3G. I would definitely classify that as an A tier. I don't even know what these letters mean. I know they mean something, but I would definitely say, the 3GS, not only did it bring upgraded internals as well as the 3G, but it was just more so of a better package that also got a couple more versions of iOS than the iPhone 3G did. So in my opinion, I would definitely classify the iPhone 3GS as an A tier without a doubt. Now, the iPhone 4, in my opinion, is obviously a D tier. Just kidding. The iPhone 4 is an S tier without a doubt. I made a whole separate video talking about how the iPhone 4 was probably one of the best iPhones ever made, okay? Now, in terms of just the way it looks, I'm just going to base it off that. Just kidding. I'm going to talk about some other things, but the internals, a lot of things were changed there, but most of the changes did come from the outside, the external of the device. We got a much better feeling premium device. We got a glass back, front facing camera. We can do FaceTime, so many different things, and a whole new retina screen. This is what really separated the iPhone from basically all other competitors, because at that time they were still making like plastic phones, they were still making really cheap feeling devices, but Apple went ahead and made their iPhone 4 feels so much more premium, and without a doubt this is definitely an S tier. And so with that being said, the iPhone 4 did bring a whole bunch to the table. Of course the iPhone 3GS and all these other phones did too, but the iPhone 4, without a doubt, I think all of you would agree the iPhone 4 was one of the most important iPhones ever. Now with the iPhone 4S, even though it is technically a better upgrade than the iPhone 4, it's a better phone, I don't see the iPhone 4S having a better impact than the iPhone 4. And honestly, in my opinion, the way that the iPhone 4S was brought up, okay, it kind of started off fine, but towards the ending, it really kind of, unstructured. Apple kind of unstructured it a little bit with the iOS 9.3.5. So I would probably classify that as it stands, maybe a B tier, maybe even to a C tier, honestly. I'll probably bring it down to a C tier. It didn't start off that way. It probably started off as an A tier, but now on iOS 9.3.5, it isn't the greatest. The impact that it had isn't as crazy as the iPhone 4's, but I really want to say that it really didn't make iOS 9 look any better than it already did. I don't even think iOS 9 was that bad of a device, but it should have never gotten iOS 9, and that's pretty much where I would classify that as. Now the iPhone 5C, I'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and talk about the iPhone 5. I think the iPhone 5 definitely is an A tier device. It's not as crazy as an iPhone 4, iPhone 2G, but it definitely did bring some new things to the table. We got somewhat of a new design, which in fact we still kind of talk about today. When I talk about the iPhone SE or iPhone SE 2, a lot of people talk about that phone and love that phone, and this was where that device and that design kind of stemmed from. The iPhone 5 had that aluminum surrounding, glass on the front and back kind of, but like the back had like 2 glass panels up top, but it didn't feel cheap at all. We had a new 4-inch screen. It was brighter. It was bigger. We had overall one of the best looking colors, a space gray, the dark gray version. The iPhone 5 was definitely one of my favorite devices, and that's why I'd classify it as an A tier, no doubt. Now the iPhone 5C, I made a video about this, and it might look like I'm nitpicking or just talking trash, but without a doubt, I honestly think the iPhone 5Z is a D tier device. I don't think it ever should have been made, honestly. I think they should have kept selling the iPhone 5 instead of the 5C. It's not a horrible device. I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever. It's obviously better than a lot of the other devices on this table so far, but at that time they overpriced it. They made the phone feel cheaper. They made so many different things that they really didn't need to, and I definitely think that they really messed up at it, and they should have never done it. They should have just dropped the iPhone 5 and just kept selling the iPhone 5 for a cheaper price and kept selling the iPhone 5S at the same time. And I already made a video about the 5C being the worst iPhone ever. So if you want to go back on the channel and watch that one, you can. I kind of justified it a little bit more, but I would definitely say for my specific tier, the 5C is probably the worst one so far. However, with the iPhone 5S, I would also put this up to an A tier. You know, it kind of did keep the same design. So in terms of that innovation, it really didn't do too much, I'll definitely be honest. But we did see Touch ID being brought up. So that was something that, like I said, we still see talked about today. People want Touch ID back. I want Touch ID back. I don't really like Face ID that much. But this was the first iPhone with Touch ID, with Touch ID 1. And that is an awesome thing. That is a bunch of innovation. And honestly, I was kind of figuring whether I want to classify this as an A tier or C or S tier. The only thing stopping me maybe is possibly the design. They didn't really do too much craziness with it, but I think that was a very safe bet as well. A is still a very, very good tier as well. It's still getting iOS updates, you know, so many years later, and that's one reason why the iPhone 5S is still ranked super high in my opinion. Now the next set of iPhones, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, this is going to be kind of different because I would probably rank the 6 Plus a little bit higher than the iPhone 6, but for the case being, I'll just probably rank them the same. I would honestly classify these somewhere between a C tier and a B tier. For the time being, I'll probably put them in the C tier. And here's a reason why. Okay, I talk a lot about the 6 and 6 Plus. I think they were good phones for a certain amount of time, but just the sheer amount of problems that we're seeing now and the impact that it's kind of having to the Apple reputation, I think that the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus are kind of almost detrimental to the iPhone image, you know, in a way. Because every day we see new reports, new people saying, oh my god, my iPhone 6 this, my 6 Plus that. And even though they kind of did bring a lot of innovation at the time, they brought a bigger design, you know, we saw the Plus model, bigger battery, all these different things. I definitely do think at a certain point, Apple did kind of mess up a little bit with this design. They made it too easily to be bent, you know, Bendgate, that was something that should have never happened. They should have taken more time with it. And it's kind of sad though, because they did bring a lot of innovation with this, a bigger screen, bigger body, you know, newer kind of design a little bit. And from the 5S, it was a pretty big upgrade in terms of design, the way it looks, but just the functionality of it, they didn't really increase the speeds that much. The 5S and the 6 are almost the same exact speed. They kept it around the same price, which is pretty awesome, but I would probably rank these here. But the successors to these two iPhones, the iPhone 6s Plus and the iPhone 6s, I would rank these without a doubt an S tier device. Now, I don't know where the iPhone 6s is. Let me try to find it right here. I would definitely 100% rank these as an S tier. And the reason being, like, honestly, the 6S and the 6S Plus are basically what the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus should have been. They should have been these devices. They're still extremely fast. I talk about them almost every single day. Literally, if you look on any video that I make, I almost say like the 6S and 6S Plus are still very good devices. I see nothing really wrong with them. I mean, obviously the XS and XS Max are much better, but the sheer impact that the 6S and 6S Plus have, not even at the time of their release, but just until like right now, they still have so many features. We have Force Touch. We have a better build quality than the 6 and 6 Plus, so they weren't bent as easily. The sheer performance of these devices on iOS 12 is still very solid, and I still see no reason for people, if they're on a budget, to upgrade from a 6S or 6S Plus. We were able to shoot 4K on cameras. Really, the only downside maybe of the 6S and 6S Plus was the battery issues that they were having, especially the 6 Plus to the 6S Plus. There was a decrease in the size of the battery, and even from the 6 to the 6S, and that's one thing that I always look down upon. I always say, like, man, manufacturers of these phones, they should not be decreasing the battery size. If anything, they should be increasing them. But I feel like the 6S and 6S Plus pretty much make it up in terms of just everything else that they've done, and I really applaud these phones. I like them a lot. Now the next two iPhones, the 7 and 7 Plus, and I don't know if you guys like me kind of merging these two together, but this is where I would probably start separating them. I think the iPhone 7 would be classified as a B tier. Like, it wasn't a crazy improvement from the 6S. I think it was definitely a solid phone. It's somewhat average. Like, it didn't bring too much to the table. It removed the headphone jack, which a lot of people didn't like. And, for me, I didn't like that at the time, but so far I've gotten used to it. It did bring IP certification and some other things like that. But with the iPhone 7 Plus, though, I would probably rank that as an A tier. And the reason being is because this phone brought the dual camera setup. I think it brought the best color setting so far, the jet black version, which was awesome. And with my usage of it, I was totally happy with it. I didn't find too many things wrong with it. I think the impact that it had wasn't nearly as great as the 6S Plus, but I do think for the future of Apple, it did kind of do a lot. Also, like, it brought the IP certification like the 7, but on top of that, it also brought that stereo effect speaker thing with a top ear speaker where you speak through the phone, you can hear people. It doubled that as a speaker, so you can now have like a stereo effect type of speaker, which was cool. The only downside with both of these phones, the 7 and the 7 Plus, was that it sealed the front home button, so it wasn't an actual button. Now, some people like that. Me personally, if I was never a repair person, if I was never going to fix a phone, if I never really cared that much, then it would have been fine. But I know for a lot of people, especially me, I like repairing my phone sometimes. I don't do it as much as I used to. But if you were to replace the front LCD screen, your home button would actually not work anymore, and neither would Touch ID. And that is exactly what happened with my iPhone 7. So kind of keep that in mind if you're planning on getting any of these phones. But that's kind of where these two phones stand in my opinion. Now, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, I would also probably rank these as a B tier. They didn't really bring too much that we already didn't see. Obviously, they weren't horrible phones, and obviously the 8 Plus is better than the 7 Plus. But in terms of the impact that they had and what they brought to the table, I think they were definitely middle of the road. Nothing too crazy. Of course, there were improvements here and there. I guess the screens got brighter and the glass on the back, wireless charging. But I still don't think it was as great of an improvement or craziness. Those things are cool and all, but I don't really think they separated too much from the already 7 and 7 Plus phones that were already being sold. So now, how can I forget the most important phone of all? Okay, the iPhone SE. I love this thing to death, but honestly, I don't even think it was like an S tier device. Definitely it was great. I think it was definitely an A tier. As much as I love it, I literally love the iPhone SE so much. Don't think it really brought as much as the 6S and 6S Plus. I definitely do think it was great. I wish there was something between the S and A tier. I would probably rank it there, but this is still a very high level device. The iPhone SE brought so much to the table. I love it so much. Did it bring as much as these phones? Probably not, but it did bring a lot. It updated the 5S, and I would probably rank it just as the iPhone 5S. It was the internal refresh. It kind of filled in a need and a void that a lot of people wanted, and I still talk about it to this day. It's still getting iOS updates, and it's an awesome little device, and I like it a lot. Now, moving back to the 2017 phones, the iPhone 10, you might be surprised about my opinion on this, even though I barely even talk about it. I bash it all the time. I think the iPhone 10 is probably an S tier device. Okay, now let me explain this. The iPhone 10 did bring the whole bezel-less design to it, okay? It wasn't completely bezel-less, it brought the notch and everything. And as much as we don't like the notch, as much as we don't like Face ID, all these different things, we do have to accept that that is the future, that is the way phones are going to go. In order for us to kind of make improvements, we kind of have to, be willing to take an impact, take a hit right now in order to kind of increase the technology in the future. And for me, the iPhone 10, without a doubt, is probably an S-tier device. It had a humongous impact to the phone market. Phones that nowadays are all being bezel-less and notchless and all those things. And I kind of want to credit that a lot to Samsung as well for the Galaxy S8 and a lot of other phone manufacturers. Obviously, Apple wasn't like the first phone to ever be bezel-less or anything, but it was one of the first ones to kind of popularize that without a doubt. And you guys know once Apple does something, phone manufacturers are going to copy it. So without a doubt, the iPhone 10, it's still my daily driver. I like it a lot. I think it brought a bunch to the table. It's not perfect. It's messed up here and there, but I do think it's a solid device without a doubt. And it definitely brought a lot to the table in my opinion. Now the iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max. Okay, so you might think, these are the newest iPhones, so these are S-tier devices because they're the best. But in my opinion, I would probably classify both the iPhone XS and the iPhone XS Max as B-tier devices. Somewhere probably between B-tier and C-tier, somewhere in between there. Obviously, the iPhone XS is better than the iPhone 5, but I don't think these phones really brought too much to the table. They did bring a couple things, 4 gigs of RAM, and really that's about all I can really think of off the top of my head. Obviously a couple other things too, Apple A12 chip and all those different things, but this is sheer impact. It really didn't bring too much, and I'm not the only one who said it. Everyone pretty much stated that the iPhone XS and XS Max were just not good updates from the iPhone X, even from the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. I mean, if you already own those phones, there's no reason to upgrade to the XS and XS Max. Now, maybe I would rank the XS Max a little bit higher, maybe at an 8th tier, just because it is like, a bigger version of it, but we've already seen that before. That's why I'd probably keep it at a B tier right there. Now with the iPhone XR, okay, this is the impact that it had. Even though I bash it all the time as well, as much as I hate saying this, I would probably classify the iPhone XR as an A tier. I was probably going to put it as a C tier, but that's kind of my own opinion. I would probably, if I was just stating from my own opinion and just using it and all that stuff, I would probably classify it as a C tier. But looking at the larger impact that it had, this was pretty much a kind of a guess and test for Apple, I think, in my opinion, just like what the iPhone 5C was. But the 5C was more of a flop than the XR. And the reason I say that is because Apple's earnings report came out recently, and I've seen reports before that the iPhone XR was Apple's best-selling device. As much as people want to diss it, as much as I diss it all the time, the iPhone XR does kind of do a lot for Apple, and it is kind of keeping them afloat, if you will. I mean, they're not going to go in debt or anything. They did try to price it competitively a little bit. They still overpriced it. They should have dropped the price. They did skimp out on a couple features here and there, but I would probably rate the iPhone XR a low A. It's not definitely, I would definitely classify the SE being higher. Really, I would classify all these other phones being higher than the iPhone XR, but I cannot take away the legacy that the iPhone XR will have. It provided a lot of people, a kind of a bezel-less iPhone experience without paying that premium, I guess. I mean, it's really only like $150 difference or whatever it is. And used prices for these things are already going down, so if you want to pick it up, I would definitely recommend buying it used. But this is pretty much my tier lineup, this is how I would pretty much classify all of them. Again, some of these are not all the same level. Like, I would classify the SE being higher than the XR, and the XR probably being the lowest out of all of these. But this is pretty much the closest I can get by setting it up. And looking at it, I mean, maybe I would change things around. Maybe the 6 and 6 Plus, I would classify these higher. But without a doubt, I would definitely say this is somewhat of what my layout is. So this is what mine is, but I'm super curious on what your tier list is. Again, if you do this, let me know. Just DM me on Instagram or don't Snapchat me because I never look at them. But DM me your pictures on Instagram of these. Again, if you're a YouTuber, you make content, make a reaction video, do your own. I want to kind of compare these. I didn't spend all this time making this tier list for no reason. If you want to do it, be my guest. I would love to see what your guys' tier list are, but that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button. That'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.